What's up, everybody? I'm coming to you from yet another perspective in the store. Just trying to switch it up a little bit. Not trying to freak you out. Anyway, got Riri behind me. Prince, rest your soul. I just wanted to just kind of check in a little bit, let you know that we're still working on our record store day drop plans. It's looking like it's going to be a socially distanced RSD for us, at least the first one. The way things are going in the country, I think we just have to plan for the worst and hope for the best. And if you don't plan for the worst, you don't want to be caught in a situation where you can't do RSD and record store day. And we have a parking lot, so we're fortunate. So I think it's going to be a curbside thing, which means I've been talking about having you email me 24 hours beforehand, store email address. We'll get you that information when we get closer and get things sort of sorted out. Well, I'm doing semaphore here. It's a little bit of sign language. Anyway, I wish. So, anyway, there will be more in the next update for sure about all of this process. So don't stress out about it yet. Some people are sort of like, well, I kind of like waiting in line because I like talking to people, but I don't like coming at 1 o'clock in the morning and having to wait for 7 hours. I'm like, well, see, there's a give and take. This time you won't have to wait. You'll know what your time is. So there's that. There's pluses and minuses to it, and I've come to the conclusion that there's no way that we're going to make everybody happy. It's just impossible. So anyway, I do want to kind of let the people who are leery of coming in on a record store day and going through the shop have the option of doing curbside, because I think it's unfair to expect people who might be physically health compromised to have to do that, put themselves at risk for that. We gotta be realistic. All right, so anyway, I kind of wanted to keep things a little lighter today. Usually, when I started the store several years ago, and even before that, I used to kind of blog once in a while, and I would do like every 3 months or so, I'd kind of collect my thoughts and say, hey, these are my favorite records of the last quarter or whatever. And I realized that I totally missed it this year. I'd been doing it for the store for a while. I don't know if people were really reading it. I don't think so. But this year, it blew past me, and I thought, oh, what better way to do it than throw it in the videos? So I think what I'm going to do is kind of give you my favorite albums of the first 6 months of this year, or at least I shouldn't necessarily say my favorites, because I have some favorites that may not be in there, but it's really more like albums that have really hit me in a way that I think are the best. And so this is a totally subjective list. You may not agree with it at all, and I'm perfectly okay with that. But I'm kind of putting this out there just in case there are some artists that maybe you aren't as aware of and you want to check them out or something. So, look, there's people that I could start with right away that like Pearl Jam, Ozzy Osbourne, The Strokes, all put out great records. They're not going to be on my list, but I think they're in the general consciousness as, hey, those were good records this year. Run the Jewels 4, I don't really include because it hasn't been released physically yet. That's September 18th. So it'll probably be on a later list. Same thing with Taylor Swift, which she just dropped an album. I don't know if we'll even see it in the store. We'll probably get the CD like the last one. We never got the vinyl because it was a Target exclusive. I hate that whole thing. It should be like, at least give the indie stores a black vinyl version that they can sell. So, it's ridiculous. And it's not only Target, Urban Outfitters. I could go on and name a bunch of names. So, not fair. All right, so let me get to my list of my sort of picks so far this year. So number one, they're not in any order. Fiona Apple's Fetch the Bolt Cutters. I think this is a great sort of pandemic-y album. It was recorded before the pandemic, yet the sounds and themes of it being sort of totally made at home and it being kind of all about the breakup of a relationship and her kind of inner torture with the men in her life. It's a very personal record. It's not for everybody. It's definitely her most personal statement, I feel, even so far, and that's kind of saying something. But it's an odd record, but it's a good record. So, and I think people were really feeling it during the shutdown. Phoebe Bridgers' The Punisher is the next one. Great album. I think Phoebe really has kind of a tender way of going at things and flipping the lyrics in new and interesting ways of sort of like what you would consider kind of alt Americana, kind of folk, whatever. And at times she gets into kind of tortured alternative rock territory, especially on the last song. So she's one to watch. She came a long way from early years being a Ryan Adams sort of acolyte that he wasn't promoting. Obviously, it was one of those people. To last year's collaboration with Conor Oberst of Bright Eyes. So she's come a long way. The ladies are just killing it this year, I think. My third choice is Laura Marling's Song for Our Daughter. I've liked Laura a lot since her first record, Alas I Cannot Swim. I thought her second album with Mumford & Sons or whatever was her best for me up to this point. But all of them are really great. Her writing is so unique. Her voice is very kind of husky. She sounds like this generation's Joni Mitchell to me. I do feel like Song for Our Daughter, the new one, which is interesting because she does not have a child, is probably at least, if not her best, one of her best. So check that out. A Girl Called Eddie. She has an album called Been Around. Where has she been? We don't know. Erin Moran, not the one from Happy Days, the TV show, made her last album 15 years ago with Richard Hawley, a former member of Pulp, and she sort of was a New Jersey girl that moved to London, and life intervened apparently, so here we are with her second album. It's very like 70s FM inspired. I hear a lot of mix of, you could say, Karen Carpenter meets sort of Dusty Springfield with like Chicago horns on it, and it's got kind of a soul vibe too. There's the Watson twins sing backup on it. You might remember them from Jenny Lewis projects. So anyway, it's a great album, start to finish. Daniel Tashian co-produced it with her and co-created it. And he worked on Casey Musgrave's Golden Hour, her last record that was so good. So a lot of talent there. Check that out. You probably won't see that on too many shelves around, but you should if the world was a just place. And then I will also include fifth female in a row, Jessie Ware. What's Your Pleasure? If you like sort of chic era disco, Nile Rodgers mixed with Tom Tom Club, Talking Heads kind of early New York electronic kind of, but with a more organic feel. I mean, it reminds me a little of early Prince at times and stuff like that. Breathy vocals, but really well sung and not over emoted like a Mariah or something like that. It's a great album, start to finish. Not a duff track. I mean, at times it kind of reminds me of, if you remember Lisa Stansfield from All Around the World, 1990. It's kind of got that sort of vibe at times. So, but sometimes less is more, and it's a fantastic album. Sondre Lerche, Patience, another singer-songwriter that's been at it for about 20 years, and he's a Norwegian, now living in LA. It's a very tuneful record. There's a lot of Tin Pan Alley in it. It reminds me of sort of like how there's a through line in the whole thing again about sort of his breakups. And it's very touching, actually. There's one song that has Van Dyke Parks did the orchestration. You might know him from his association with Brian Wilson on Beach Boys' Smile. So it's a pretty special record, I think, and he's made a lot, and some are just better than others, and I really resonate with this one. So, Sparks, a steady drip, drip, drip. These guys have been at it for 50 years. The Mail Brothers from L.A. Americans don't know them so much, but they went to England in the mid 70s, and Russell, especially the lead singer, became a teen idol there. And well, they were thrown in categories with like Queen and worked with some of Queen's producers, worked with Todd Rundgren. They've had all sorts of like famous sort of interactions. Last few years, they were in a band called FFS, which was them and Franz Ferdinand together. So anyway, if you like 70s glam, if you like electronic, if you like classical music with crazy Dadaist humor, check out A Steady Drip, Drip, Drip. It's a great record. Jarvis Cocker, going under the name Jarvis, Beyond the Pale. It's his, I guess, fourth really solo record, sort of, since Pulp disbanded 20 years ago. He's been kind of doing more like art projects and things like that. This is probably the most pulpy sounding album since Pulp broke up. So if you're into the part of Pulp that did This Is Hardcore, it's a little darker side. He gives a lot of sort of like spoken word ruminations. It's a little political, but it's also dark. But his global view is sort of bleak. But the music is great, and I would definitely check that out if you're interested in him at all. Pet Shop Boys' Hotspot. Who would have thought that they would have had the foresight to name their album Hotspot 2 months before the pandemic really hit? I think they were probably more thinking of like Wi-Fi, but I don't really know. It was recorded in Berlin, and it's another great collection of sort of like pop and kind of sort of retro disco and a little bit of like, there's even like singer-songwritery folk songs on there about the environment and stuff. They've always done quality work. About every 3 or 4 years, there's another Pet Shop Boys album, so I think they're up to like 15, 16 now. They've been around for like 35 years. Probably some of the best singer-songwriters coming out of England. Neil Tennant, a great lyricist, and Chris is a highly underrated pianist, keyboardist. All right, and Bob Dylan's Rough and Rowdy Ways. Probably a no-brainer for some people. I know his voice is not for everybody, but it's a really great quality record. Probably his best since Time Out of Mind from beginning to finish. Even his song about JFK's assassination, where he works in Don Henley and Glenn Frey, what do they have to do with it? I don't know. But Rough and Rowdy Ways is a good record to check out. So go ahead and do that. And then I just want to name off a few other things here that sort of resonated with me. The new Margot Price, Jason Isbell, Lucinda Williams, the Jayhawks, Steve Earle, and the Dukes. All of those Americana artists, sort of not quite folk, not quite rock, somewhere in between. They all put out great albums this year. Some of their best work from all of them. Then I would also include sort of more heritage artists. Maria McKee, who does not get talked about much. She was the lead singer of Lone Justice. Her new album is great. The Pretenders, Hate for Sale, fantastic record. X, their first album in 37 years, Alphabet Land. All of those artists have been around for a while, and they're doing great stuff. Destroyer had another great album this year. If you like listening to cranky college professors recite poetry in weird ways over and over, Dan Bayar is great. Magnetic Fields, their new record, Quickies, also very humorous. No song is over 2 minutes long. and they're all sort of funny jokes and odd humor for odd people, I suppose. Few other great sort of alternative artists: Proto Martyr, Perfume Genius, Soccer Mommy. Those were particularly interesting albums to me. Nicole Atkins, who has kind of a like a 70s Stevie Nicks vibe at times. That's a great album. Haim, the Three Sisters from LA. I thought that was probably their best album so far. If you like beachy, breezy stuff, Rolling Blackouts and Real Estate both had great sort of alt rock, beachy albums. Caribou is sort of a little bit like Jamie XX, kind of in a DJ, sort of every song is a little bit different. James Hunter 6 if you like rockabilly. Don Bryant if you like soul. Don Bryant is actually Ann Peebles' husband and wrote early songs for Al Green. And he kind of sounds like an older Al Green. So those are great. And finally, some really popular records that should be on the list here. The Weeknd, which kind of got overlooked because it came out right when the pandemic sort of got into full swing. His album After Hours is great. Lady Gaga's Chromatica, which I think people know about. Tame Impala's The Slow Rush, pretty obvious. Fantastic record. And I don't know, people will say, well, it's not as good as Currents. What I mean, look, you waited 5 years. It's a pretty darn good record. I don't know. It's always like people compare. You know, take it for what it is. It's good work. Dua Lipa, that's a very sort of pop dance record. If you like sort of Kylie and stuff like that, you want your dance music with a little more depth than some. And then of course the Mac Miller Circles, which I would be remiss if I didn't mention. John Bryan produced that, and boy, it shows a whole side of Mac that I just never really knew existed. The fact that he sings the way he does, you know, all this stuff he was just on the edge of doing it, and then, well, we all know what happened, I guess, but he's no longer with us. So that's sort of a posthumous record, but it's really well done, and I think John Bryan did him justice putting that out. So anyway, I hope that wasn't overwhelming. There are many others that I sort of forgot that I could have thrown in there. Rufus Wainwright, Liam LaHavas. I mean, there were a bunch. But I just wanted to kind of give you my favorites so far, considering I'm covering 7 months of releases in less than 15 minutes. All right. Thanks so much for listening. You may not like any of these, so, you know, I won't be hurt if you don't. But at least you have some information there if you're interested in investigating. All right. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you guys next week, maybe 2 weeks, whatever, about Record Store Day drops a month from tomorrow.